Hello everybody, and welcome back for another episode here on the SMP. Last episode we worked on some of these trees out in front of the farmhouse here, and for the sake of not making another episode where I just make a bunch of trees, I decided we're gonna switch it up a little bit. We're still gonna be working on these trees here, but in a little bit of a different format than usual. I'm going to kind of do a little bit of a tutorial on how to build these trees, which I haven't really done on this channel before. I've kind of mentioned some of the aspects that are important, but I haven't really done an in-depth tutorial. I'm gonna need some materials though, so let's go ahead and gather them up, and then we'll go ahead and start on the first tree. Alright, I think we got blocks, so let's go ahead and make our first tree. The first thing to figure out is what kind of tree we want, and I think this kind of style that we have all over the place is a pretty good choice, so we're going to use that. Now the next thing to figure out is where to put our tree, and I think we got to count some blocks. So if you see this kind of pillar of oak blocks right here, this is where I kind of start off all my trees. And to start putting another one in, we need to figure out where to put that trunk in a good spot so it's not close by. So for instance, we don't want it right here, because we're quickly going to run into this tree and everything's going to be kind of a bit of an issue. So we want it a bit further out, but not so far that the trees seem oddly placed. So best way to do it, I have found, is just to count how many blocks away from the central trunk you gotta go to make a full branch. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is the amount that we have over here, and if we just count another 6 from this spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, you got a bit of a good idea of how big this tree needs to be, and also a good place to start making the tree. And I think we're gonna go a couple blocks over just to give it a little bit of room, kind of variation, I guess, make it seem a little bit more natural. And we're going to go ahead and build our first few blocks here. Now, to start off, I always do a pretty similar shape for these trees, and that shape is this, pretty much. I also put some stairs in, and that just helps me kind of get the idea of what this shape is supposed to be off from the get-go. Now, I also sometimes change the orientation of this shape. You know, like over here, this is going this way, and it's going this way over here, so keep that in mind as well. Now we need to do two things, the roots and the branches, and this is probably the most important part for this type of tree. Each tree kind of has its own characteristics and the things that make it really identifiable. For these trees, we definitely need good roots. So let's go ahead and just place them in and see what works and what doesn't. Alright, I think I have a good idea of how I want the roots laid out, though I don't ever really know until after we get the branches in, so we'll go ahead and move on to that pretty soon. Yeah, I think that's good. Alright, so let's go ahead and do the branches. So first, I like to kind of move that up a little bit so I can tell where it's going to be. But for the branches, I usually start off from these stairs going out, and I do one of a few different shapes, but I always keep in mind that it has to end on a top slab, because there needs to be a fence post above it. And I think for this tree especially, this is too short. We're gonna need a longer branch, and I think I have a good design in mind. This one. The next step is to kind of curve off the branch a little bit so it doesn't look completely straight anymore, which you always want to do whenever making something that's meant to be natural. Of course, there's other branch designs Let's try another one here. For this one, I think we're pretty good, but we need a little bit more so that it ends on that top slab. Maybe somewhere like that. Maybe not. It's always about back it up and trial and error. I think I like that for the most part, but I do think we need to make it a little bit diagonal. And to give the other branch some room, we're going to go in this direction with it again. That kind of gives a nice shape, I think. Now for the last branch, we want to, I don't know yet. I gotta place it. And I think we'll do that there. Maybe try this again. If that's about right, I think that is. So for this, we don't want the log showing, so we're going to craft it into the oak wood instead of oak log, and that way it looks just a little bit more natural. I think that is good for our first layer of branches, because I usually just do 3 on this first layer. I think that gives the best kind of shape for this kind of tree. For the next part, we're going to add another layer of slightly smaller trees, and I think we're going to start pretty much on the top layer of this small branch here. Let's see. Over here, we're going to do it again. And for these branches as well, you're going to want to always end on that top slab. So the shapes sometimes look a little strange, like this one, which looks really flat. But it doesn't matter too much, especially whenever you get the diagonals in. You don't really notice it. So we'll keep going here. I think we're going to want a branch on this side. And right here. And I think just eyeballing it, that should be good enough. So the next step is to put in some fence post. So for this tree, I feel like it's gonna take about a stack, maybe a little less, but we're going to make more trees after anyways. So what I do at first is just kind of place in a kind of general shape for all of these, starting pretty much anywhere, it doesn't really matter. And the shape is 4 on the bottom facing out, and then 1 on the top. So 5 fence posts per branch, and that usually works out pretty well. Oh, and don't forget to put some fence post on the top of the middle log here. So for the last stage of this, we're gonna need some leaves. And to do this, I usually just start off by placing as many as possible just against the fence post here. And that is a good place to start, but it's not going to be where we end up. So we're just gonna place a bunch around here, and I'll come back and explain the rest in a second. So now you'll notice we have a really bad looking tree. This is the first step in making a really good looking tree. So let's go ahead and continue on and try and form these leaves in a way that makes them look a little better. First of all, we need leaves on the bottom of these fence post clusters, and you kind of just want to put them kind of in a corner, in maybe a little shape like that, just to give them a little bit of character. I feel like is the appropriate word. And you're going to want to maybe sometimes destroy a few of these leaf blocks. Just kind of make the shape look a little nicer. Of course, with this whole process, it is very much trial and error, so we're going to keep going here, and I'll talk about something interesting if I find it, not including that guy. One of the things I like to do while working on these trees is play in F5 up a little bit, and that way you can kind of tell the shape of your tree a little bit better while you're still on it. Now, it's sometimes a little disorienting and a little difficult to build in F5, but you'll get used to it eventually. I hope. I'll let you know if I ever get there. Alright, I think we're pretty much done with this tree. There's not too much to add or remove. I think the shape of the leaves is good, so we'll move on to the next one pretty soon. Just doing a couple little looks. Of course, we gotta do a look from a little bit further away. I think we're pretty good. There's still a little bit of something right there that I think I'm going to fix. So hold on a moment, but there's really nothing to doing this part of it. You just kind of gotta look and move blocks and look and move blocks and just go back and forth a whole bunch. But let's get to the next tree. Alright, for this one, we're going to take a completely different approach. We have this kind of gap in the trees to fill, and we definitely don't have enough room for a big tree like this one, so we're going to do one of the hickory trees. So if we go over here, this is what I'm talking about when I say hickory tree. It is kind of tall, slender, just has a bunch of leaves going all up and down it. And these are built in a very different way. So first of all, we just kind of need to find the middle of this gap, which I think is about right here. And that's where we're going to start. And I'm actually going to swap that out with, with a bit more of a trunk like this. And that's what we're going to start with. Then I'm going to go up here with some fences and start with just making a pillar that's about 10 blocks tall. I made it a little bit shorter just because I think that fits the tree line better, and because the bottom of the tree is a little bit taller than usual with this extra block on the bottom. So once we got that in place, what we'll do is just kind of start placing fence posts and ideally staying on our scaffolding. The way I do these fence posts here is a little bit sporadically and without too much of a pattern, though there needs to be a sort of general shape with these, I've learned. You start out pretty short, but then you kind of start adding a couple more fence posts as you go downwards. So we'll start adding just a little bit more to some of these, like a fence post there maybe, and then we'll keep going down, and right about here, this is where we want our longest ones to be, so they're going to be about 3 fence posts in length. And we'll do another little shape, be like this will be good. And actually, I think I'm going to curve it even more, like that. Yeah, I think I like that. So that's going to be our longest branches, and in between, we just kind of want about medium sized. And I think we'll be about good. We'll keep adding more, and then once we're done, we'll move on to leaves. Alright, so for this part, we're going to grab our leaves and just kind of place them all over the fence post again. Just everywhere, pretty much, along this tree. And then we'll start working on the shape again once we got all these in place. And don't be too strict about it because most of these blocks are going to change anyways. So let's go ahead and keep adding more. Now with these, they're pretty much already looking good, so it's a lot harder to kind of tell where you want your leaves to be and not be, but you can still kind of figure out some of the details just by looking. There are certain parts that just don't look quite right, so you're going to just kind of break them, move them around, see what you want to do with each spot, and fix what you want to fix, leave what you want to leave. Alright, I think that's a little bit better, so we'll move on to yet another tree. I think for this one, we're going to maybe move over here and do one of these cedar trees. Now for these, I pretty much just start with fence post, so let's see if I have a good idea where I want to put one. I think right here is probably a good spot, so let's go ahead and kind of just mark out where we want this tree to be. I think right there, probably about right. So for this one, what I do is pretty much just straight fence post and maybe make them a little bit more varied. Maybe something a bit more like this. So you have straight fence post at different heights, and you're going to kind of teeter them off a little bit so they get shorter as you go up. Let's keep adding fence post here. So a bit like this, maybe. Actually, this one could be down on this level. Don't have to have them all on the same level, be the same length. Like this one's a little bit shorter. And I think we're going to stay pretty short with this one because I kind of want to frame the farmhouse through here. I think having one a little shorter than the other one makes a lot of sense, just for the kind of general feel of this area, you know. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to leaves. So for these, I do a mix of spruce and azalea leaves because the spruce are kind of this nice texture with the needles, and the azalea are a nice color that gives it a little bit more warmth, which they kind of have in real life. So we're going to place them in like this with the spruce leaves parallel to the branch, then the azalea on top and another spruce at the end there. And you can kind of just do this for all of them first, and then we'll do more precise shaping again at the end. Alright, now we need to do some shaping, and I already see a few issues kind of with this going on. Really what we gotta pay attention to here is the outermost ends of the leaves, so we need to kind of trim this part and that part back a little bit, and we already have quite a bit of a nicer shape. I think we can go ahead and do something like this, maybe. And we're back to doing some trial and error with the leaves. Alright, I think that is a pretty good cedar tree, and I think we're also pretty much out of time for this episode, which is kind of a nice coincidence because I didn't have another tree to build. I've kind of done the three styles that we have any trees left to build. There's sycamore trees and pine trees, but we don't need any more of those, and the pine trees are so complicated that it hurts my brain when I try to build them and not explain them at the same time, so that's not going to be a tutorial anytime soon. But I guess we're kind of to the end of the episode, so I'll go ahead and address the elephant in the room. I changed my username. It's Oholomon now, which it's been a long time coming. I've been meaning to change my username since before I started YouTube, really, but I never really had a good name until now. I finally kind of figured out what I kind of wanted it to sound like, some of the things I wanted to reference with it, and now I have a new username, which is a mashup of Oholiab, which is the builder of the tabernacle in the Old Testament, and Solomon, who, I mean, most people know who Solomon is. He's the son of King David. He built the temple. I don't know. There's other things. If you don't know, like, look it up on Wikipedia or something. Anyway, that's the mashup of my name. It's pretty interesting. I like it. I think I'm going to stick with it for at least a little bit, but I think we're out of time for this episode. So I think I'm going to end it here. Thank you all for watching, and God bless.